Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this Inside the Music, this beautiful it's February. It should be. I just realized I got a typo. This should say February 10th. So just ignore where it says January and pretend that that says February. And if a little scrambled, I just took over as a part-time lecturer in composition and orchestration at Fresno State, which is really a lot of fun because I get to work with a lot of really talented students. But it's also a lot of work, so my brain gets a little scrambled, and my brain is already a little scrambled to begin with. So I apologize for that. So this is February 10th. We have a spectacular concert, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to go in depth. We're going to talk about some of the things you can look forward to in the Mahler Symphony and the piano work that we have. Of course, as always, we have Rei Hotoda, the music director of the Fresno Philharmonic. Hello, Rei. Oh, I think.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Oh, great. And we have Stephen Wilson, and we have a couple of special guests I will introduce in a moment. Before we dive into this weekend, I would like to talk about some upcoming events. Obviously, you can find all this information on the Fresno Phil website. But this weekend, Mahler, Here and Now, with Wattage Pratt on piano, with the West Coast premiere of a brand new work. We'll be talking a little bit more in detail about that. But I also want to direct your attention to some other things coming up. For instance, we have Pink Martini in concert this March 11th, 2023, 7:30 p.m. This is going to be a very, very fun show. Now, I had some people ask me, what is Pink Martini? What is it? And people don't know. Well, I am so glad you asked that, because I want to show you a little bit about what they do. I think this is a fantastic video of them in concert, playing with a chamber orchestra. And let's have a look at this here.
Hey Eugene, do you remember me? I'm that chick you danced with 2 times through the Rufus album Friday night at that party on Avenue A, where your skinhead friend passed out for several hours on the bathroom floor, and you told me you weren't that drunk, and that I was your favorite salsa dancer you had ever come across in New York City. Eugene, I said hello. Eugene, are you there? Eugene, hey Eugene, then we kissed.
Oh, that is great. That sounds like fun. Rei, tell us a little bit. How is the Fresno Phil working with this great group? How's it all working together?
Yeah, so if you think of Pink Martini, you think of this wonderful vodka, maybe gin cocktail. So it's really like lounge music, and their music encompasses music from all over the world. She'll sing in French, she'll sing in Spanish, and it's really a very eclectic evening of fun lounge music. And the picture that we have on our website kind of is a little bit different from what their actual music sounds like. They look really like this fancy pails and everything, but it's just this fun non-classical music, but really amazing musicians on stage. So that it's quite a large band with the orchestra, and the orchestra will be backing them up.
Yeah, not classical, but classy. Yeah.
Yes. And I will be conducting that concert. So please, everyone, bring a friend and maybe have a cocktail before the concert and enjoy it.
Well, that's the only way to fully enjoy the music anyway. Is a little no, that would be
martini,
that will be fun. That will be fun. And also we have Farm to Fiddle. Stephen, tell us a little bit about Farm to Fiddle dinner party. What is this all about?
Yeah, this is a new, relatively new fundraiser that the Philharmonic created. We had our first Farm to Fiddle event last April, and basically, kind of the name almost says it all. It's a farm to table dinner with a performance by a string section of the Fresno Philharmonic conducted by Rei. So it's a wonderful evening out at the barn at the San Joaquin River Parkway. It's great food, great music, a lot of fun. This year we're really thrilled that the menu is being curated by famous Fresno chef Roy Harland of the former Harland's Restaurant is collaborating with Pardini's Catering to create the menu for this year's Farm to Fiddle. And Ray has, we just have a very brief performance right at the top of the evening of some great string tunes. And I know we've got some Copeland, some Leroy Anderson, some really fun stuff that's going to be played. So we encourage all you, the information is on our website. You can also order tickets online, but it's really a really fun evening, and all the proceeds of the event go to support the programming and the educational programs of the Fresno Philharmonic.
Oh man, that sounds like a great evening, man. I have been to the River Parkway, and it is a really, really nice place. And the San Joaquin River in general is a very nice place to go and to spend some time. But it's a great building, great. It's really a compound, isn't it? It's just absolutely spectacular. And what a great place to have a dinner and music in the evening. It's going to be warm in April, a warm April evening, man, just spectacular. But as always, you can find more information at the website about this event, upcoming concerts, because there's a lot more. We don't have time to squeeze in everything, but trust me, there's more coming up this season. It's good. And if I sound like a hype man, hyping everything up, it's because one, I am, and two, because it deserves to be hyped. But we're gonna shift and focus more on this weekend, and to help us do that, we have a couple of special guests from the Philharmonic. We have, first of all, John Freeman, the principal trumpet. John, are you with us?
I'm right here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, John. And we have Laura Porter, the principal harpist. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Mason. Hi, John. Hi, Ray.
Oh, wow. Thanks for joining us, guys. And I want to take a moment and I want to talk to you both individuals. So, John, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been playing? How did you come to play in the Fresno Phil? What is your favorite? I don't know. You could tell us just a little bit. Just tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, I live in the Bay Area. I've been playing with the Fresno Philharmonic now for probably 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
I love coming down here. Other things about me, I like to ride a bike, mountain and road. I teach a lot, teach trumpet. I teach at San Jose State. And I just kind of play all over the place. I'm in several different orchestras and just love being a trumpet player and a musician.
So that's fantastic. Last week we had a musician who travels up from Los Angeles, and you travel down from the Bay Area. So right. That's the advantage of being centrally located. And I like to remind, and like I work in LA and San Francisco, and I like to remind them that Fresno is 3 hours from everywhere, so it's wonderfully centrally located. But the interchange of people from different areas is, I think, terrific, and I love the fact that we can that people come from all over, and it's we different experiences, different. John, you said you were teaching up in the Bay Area, and you teach trumpet, I presume, or is that okay? Cool.
Yeah, I teach at San Jose State.
Fantastic, Professor. Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Excuse me. And one thing, John, we were talking a little bit before the broadcast started, and I like to ask the musicians about their favorite moment of the upcoming concert. But since we're playing Mahler 5, and we'll visit this a little bit later, but Mahler 5 starts with a very famous trumpet solo, does it not?
Yes, it does. In fact, it's probably our biggest excerpt for trumpet players. It's this monumental trumpet moment. Especially the opening of the piece is really like, it's all you. The whole piece starts with just solo trumpet for a good 15 or 20 seconds. So it's It's just one of our biggest, most important excerpts. It's something I've literally been practicing since I was in high school, since I was like in, 16 years old. I knew about this piece. Every trumpet player, as you're going through the rankings or the school education thing, you learn about Mahler 5. It's just like this monumental thing for us.
Wow, I love that. 16 years old, and your instructor saying, someday you will play Mahler 5.
If you work really hard, you'll get to play this piece.
You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can play Mahler 5. No, that's really so. When we focus on that a little bit later, I think folks will see just how important, not to steal your thunder, John, but it's a remarkable, and what a phenomenal way to start this incredible symphony. But we also have Laura Porter on the harp. And Laura, tell us a little bit about yourself. Same thing. What should we know about you? What should we know about you? What would you like to share?
Okay. Thank you, Mason. Well, I did the math while John was talking. This fall, I will be 35 years in this position. So, yeah.
Outstanding. Wow.
Yeah. So, I, like John, I joined the orchestra and I was a commuting musician for approximately the first 10 years of my tenure. And then at a certain point, it became very obvious to me that living in Fresno was my destiny. And, every time I drove into Fresno, it felt like coming home. So I'm professor of harp at Fresno State. And like you said earlier, Mason, it keeps you very well occupied teaching there. I have 2 seniors this year, and I have 2 independent study courses that I'm supervising, and I also am the harp coach at University High School. And we have had as many as 3 students there at one time in harp, and I have 2 students there, and I teach privately, of course, as well. And last year I graduated 5 high school seniors. So now I'm back in build-up mode. My youngest student is age 5.
Wow, how do they actually reach over the harp?
Well,
That's bigger than they are.
You start on a smaller harp, so she's
okay.
on a I think a 24-string harp, and and it sits on the ground, and she sits on a little stool behind it. And we're starting to graduate her to the taller instrument, which might have 33 or between 33 and 40 strings.
Gotcha.
But I play, of course, around Fresno County, and I will travel out of town to play with other orchestras. Before Christmas, I was in Santa Barbara to play with the master chorale there. Modesto Symphony, Sacramento, from time to time, and Monterey as well.
Outstanding. So musicians traveling is a theme that I'm discovering, and it's what we do. It's what we do. Now, Laura, the harp is an instrument that I know I've had to explain this, and you've probably explained it more till you're blue in the face than I have. The harp is not an easy instrument to play, and it is not an easy instrument to write for. It is a magnificent, sophisticated instrument. It's not just glisses and swirly things, although that's certainly a part of it. The harp is a remarkably physical. It requires a lot of physicality to play, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
You have both feet involved. There's 4 foot pedals on the right side, 3 foot pedals on the left side.
Yes, and they're not set up in order. It's did Columbus bring enough food going to America, right?
America.
Exactly.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Right.
And that's the mnemonic that identifies the pedals from left to right.
In fact, while we're doing, I want to share something. This is not you playing, Laura, but I have something that demonstrates just what it takes to play the harp at a I hope I have it open here. Yes, here we are. Hang on. This is an excerpt from. It's called Harp Pedal Madness, and this is some people playing the harp in a pit orchestra. Watch them as they play this piece by Wagner. Watch this and be amazed. Wow, that is incredible. Did you see how their feet were dancing like that?
By the way, Laura, we're going to be playing that next season.
Oh, we are?
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, if you know, I have played a Wagner ring and as assistant principal, and that's not the only excerpt in that opera that is a lot of pedaling, but it's certainly the most famous one. And when you know you're going to play it, you start practicing it, and you do it every day at least 10 times.
And you know,
I think
it has to be automatic, and the up and down movement is what you have to get correct, because there's a lot of enharmonic usage. For the audience here means that instead of playing an A sharp, I might play a B flat, because those are the same pitches. And it's all about fingering and what lays best, and also what solves the chromaticism issues easiestly in the feet. I recommend, as a follow-up to this, there is a video on YouTube of a harpist playing the Bach fugue in D minor. And there's a lot of shots of the feet. And because that's such a familiar piece to most of us, you can really appreciate what's happening in the feet there.
Yeah, it's the harp is one thing I like to say, that even the best composers sometimes can't write well for the harp. And there's always a certain amount of editing that always has to go on after the fact. And that's not because they're bad composers. It's because the harp is such a sophisticated
instrument. It's because they think too much like a pianist when they're writing for it. And
you cannot write like a pianist.
The piano, the hands are like this.
Yes.
On the harp, they're like this. They're mirror images, and we do not use our pinkies.
No, never use the pinky. Never.
So.
I may have written for pinky, and I apologize. Just as a for instance, I had the privilege of editing a beautiful solo harp piece by a wonderful contemporary composer, and I was an editor on it, and we had another editor, and he had his own editor. We had 3 groups of editors. This wonderful composer, a beautiful, we edited that thing for days and days until it was perfect. And of course, the harpist gets it and says, well, you could do this differently. And it's not because we were bad. It's because the harpist will always know the nuances of their instrument so different and so well. So thank you for giving us an insight into such an incredible and beautiful instrument. We're definitely going to look at some more of the harp as we go along, as we get into Mahler. But I want to transition into today, or this weekend. Excuse me, into this weekend. Mahler, here and now. Can everyone see that on the screen? I just want to make sure. Can everyone see that? Affirmatives?
Not seeing it.
You cannot see. Oh no. I did something wrong. Watch this. Let's try it again. Now the big reveal. We transition to Mahler, here and now. Now it worked. All right. We have 2 pieces of music this weekend. Whereas last month we had a whole bunch, several different pieces of music. This week we have only two, but what a two they are. We have, of course, Mahler 5, and we have, I believe, the West Coast premiere of a piece by Jesse Montgomery featuring Wadajin Pratt, who is a phenomenal pianist, violinist, conductor. If you want a little taste of what he can do, I have a clip of him playing at the White House with Joshua Bell, as you do. As you do. Let's have a look at this. Wow. Yeah, and that's him as an accompanist, and as a soloist, he is equally, and I've heard him play before, and he is a force of nature. That's really the only way I can describe it. He is a force of nature, and he is going to be joining us this Sunday. Talk a little. Oh,
Saturday.
Saturday. Excuse me, this Saturday. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
It's Saturday evening because there's some other event happening on Sunday. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's what else could be happening on Sunday. Also,
some baseball game, I think.
Yeah, some sports team thing is happening on Sunday. We also, and he will be premiering a new piece by Jesse Montgomery, who is a very, very accomplished composer, producer, a violinist. You can find her music online, of course. Now, Ray, you have a very special personal connection to both of these artists, and that can be summed up by this picture. Would you like to tell us the story behind this picture and how this whole came to be, this piece that we're playing on Saturday?
First of all, Jessie Montgomery is an incredible composer, but her background is in violin. She's an incredible violinist. And so she's an instrumentalist turned composer. And right now she's the composer in residence at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, writing a piece for the Chicago Symphony, Boston Symphony, New York Philharmonic right now. And I happen to be in Chicago at the early part of January, where Awadajin was performing this same piano concerto that we're playing on Saturday evening. And Jessie was there at the rehearsals. I was there at the rehearsals, hearing Awadajin play with the Chicago Symphony, taking down notes. So I feel like I had a cheat sheet before this weekend because I knew all the answers before our first rehearsal, and straight from the mouth of the composer saying, I want this, I would like this, changes that she was making. Like you were saying, a lot of composers do that. They're constantly editing their own work. Well, here she is editing in front of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Awadajin Pratt soloing. So we had a wonderful meal afterwards, and that's where that picture was taken, in Chicago. And so we're really thrilled to present this piece. I think her music is very unique. It is tonal, and so that it has this kind of connection, easily connecting to anybody who wants to come in and hear new music. And it's accessible, but I really sometimes hate that word accessible, because it is what it is. It's not one thing or another. And what I find so interesting about her music is that she really has her own voice, super talented musician and composer. And I heard from not only our orchestra, but from members of the Chicago Symphony saying, this piece is incredible. So you're in for a treat, all of you, to come and hear. It's a very short piano concerto. It's about 17 minutes. It's for piano and strings only. And the cadenza is fantastic because Awadagin now is very much involved in his own growth as an artist to become an improviser. And, you know, we hear a lot of these improvisations happening in the classical period with Mozart and Beethoven during the time that they were premiering their own works and improvising the cadenza on the spot. Well, with this piano concerto on Saturday evening, you will hear a different cadenza than you have ever heard this piece played again. So next time you hear Awadagin play this piece, it will be totally different. So for instance, in Chicago, I went to hear the dress rehearsal. He did, you know, his own cadenza. And in the performance the next night, it was completely different. The other thing that's fascinating about the cadenza is that he will be playing inside the piano, right? So very extended techniques. So that's called prepared piano. And what he does is he'll pluck some strings inside. He'll make some references to the melody that he had played previously in the concerto, but it's really fascinating. So I'm really excited for the audience to hear this piece.
Oh, that is thrilling. Yeah. And I have I haven't heard this piece before either. So it's going to be a brand new experience for me, a brand new experience for everyone. And it's I once again, I love that that we are giving voice to living composers, to new music, and man, what a great way to spend a Saturday evening. It's I can't wait. I really do look forward to hearing this. You know, I tell my students that we have to have a foot in both worlds. We have to embrace the best of the new and the best of the old. You know, leave behind what didn't work and keep pressing into the future. But you know, have both of those. So with that in mind, I'd like to talk about. Well, I'm going to start off with the world's worst fun, because now it's Mahler time. Oh, groan. Oh, boo. And I say that but there's actually a good reason to talk about why it is now time for Mahler. Gustav Mahler, of course, is... To say he was one of the epic romantic composers, I mean, we would place him up there with Wagner or anyone else in terms of the ambition of his pieces. His pieces are renowned, and they are experiencing everybody who's working in the world of orchestration and media music is in love with Mahler, and rightfully so. I think he bridges the 19th and 20th centuries in terms of style, passion, imagination. He kicked open the door and said, here it is, go for it, do something. In fact, someone said he was the best film conductor or best film composer who never composed for a film, because they hadn't been invented yet. But he has that that verbosity. He has that sort of expressive nature. This Symphony No. 5 is obviously a remarkable achievement. It's unusual in that it unfolds not unlike a 3-act film, because it's a symphony in 3 parts, but 5 movements. 1 and 2 are the first part. Movement 3 is the second act, so to speak. And 4 and 5 comprise the third part. So 5 movements, 3 parts. See how that works? Slightly unconventional, but it works. And it's an incredible piece of music. And Rei, more to the point, when I say it's Mahler time, let me just kind of ask you more. I guess this is more of a philosophical or musicological question. What does it mean when an orchestra says, "Okay, now it's time for us to play Mahler"? Like now we are ready. Is it something that any orchestra can attempt, or is there a certain level that you have to reach?
Absolutely not. And I feel that after my 5 years here, it's my 5th year with the Fresno Philharmonic, that we've really reached that point artistically, and the orchestra has grown tremendously in their development and playing together. And I really wanted to bring on this challenge to this orchestra because I feel that they're ready for that. And I think that it's not that the music is so difficult. It is. It's just very complex, and there's so many layers of that are in his music that require so much attentiveness and resolve and conviction. Like John's trumpet opening, the opening at the very beginning of the Fifth Symphony. You have to have that consistency and that strength to know that is something that you can do. And for the musicians, it's for instance the fourth movement for Laura, the Adagietto. I mean, she's probably played that many times, So it's this history of building that artistry that is required in Mahler's symphonies. And the other thing is, like, I want to go back to it's Mahler time.
Yes.
And your thoughts about, how a lot of composers love his music, that
Yes.
it's like film music. It is so complex. And if you step back from it, Mahler's symphonies seem so, oh yes, I can hear it. I've heard that before, and John Williams probably stole this or that, But you have to understand that Mahler, when he was writing all of this, was truly in a vacuum. I mean, there was Strauss and there was Wagner and all of that, but he really wanted to cultivate in his music something that was truly absolute music. That was pure music for him, and a lot of it is driven by his life, and also song was very important to his music, just like Mozart. We think of Mozart, all of his music is really related to his opera. So Mahler is also very much related to song and poetry and nature. Nature is a huge part of his music. But going back to the Miller time. So Mahler grew up in a brewery. His father owned a brewery, and there was a bar basically downstairs where they lived. And so you can hear drunken music in his music, in all of his symphonies. And at the same time, he lost so many of his brothers and sisters from infancy, from infanticide, just a very difficult life during that time. And there were coffins going out the back door, these little coffins of infants so there's, this drunken revelry with death constantly in his life. And the Fifth Symphony is so interesting because it is the first departure that he took that was away from song, away from text. And you were talking about the 5 movements. Well, it's really like the first 2 movements of the symphony is about darkness and about death and about anger. And that's what's so amazing about Mahler's music, is that it's relatable because it is so emotional. It really encompasses the incredible human experience from death, loss, anger, frustration. And then we have this middle movement, which is this opulent waltz. And so it's like he's making fun at the same time as glorifying the time of the Viennese, the opulence of the Viennese waltz. And then the 4th and 5th movement are this travel, this journey towards light, optimism, courage, powerful, this great sunrise at the end of the movement. So it's an incredible journey, I think, this piece.
Well, yeah, and I think you just painted a fantastic word picture, and we're all looking forward to that. As he was well known, thank you for the insight into his composition. He was also quite the conductor as well. So do you find as a conductor that you have to kind of live up to his reputation as a conductor as well?
Well, and that's what he did mostly.
Yeah.
And he would sequester himself in the summers and just write these symphonies, which I find incredible. To be working incredible seasons. I mean, just performance after performance every week during the year. And then in the summer, he would write his own music. And yes, as a conductor, it's very, very, it's like climbing the Mount Everest.
Yes.
Because he has so much detail, not only just for the musicians, but for the conductor. So in one phrase, one 4-bar phrase, he'll say, not too fast, but not too slow. And, you know, keep it moving, but not too fast here, you know, and crescendo here, but then subito piano, but then the brass will be doing the opposite direction. And you have to make sure that the oboe line comes out. Like this is within 4 measures of the
Wow.
So it is very much like Mahler standing behind me, telling me what to do in every measure.
No pressure.
Yes, but beyond that, it's the physicality of conducting this piece is really something that for conductors it's a challenge, and for the orchestra, it's the stamina throughout the whole symphony to be able to really, for John and the brass section, to be really triumphant at the end and not worry about intonation or their embouchure. Is really challenging for the orchestra.
Right, and every conductor, when they're coming, the young conductor says, "If you practice real hard, someday you will conduct Mahler." In the same way that every trumpet player coming up, if you practice hard, someday you will play the intro to Mahler 5. So that's what I want to kind of focus on here now. And John, I want to bring you back into the conversation. I want I have the actual trumpet part to Mahler 5, and I think we should take a look at this because I think there's some interesting things worth looking at. John, what we're going to play a little bit of this. What should we know? What strikes you about this? What makes this so iconic before we take a listen to it?
I think probably the complexity of emotion that you need to play this. I've heard people play the notes to this all correctly, but it'd be completely wrong. There's maybe the first time you hear this, you might think, oh, it sounds angry, but when I play it, I try to sort of imagine, it's marked Trauermarsch, so funeral procession, like the kind of emotions that you feel, if you were like carrying a coffin out to the graveside in a funeral, or like, you had just lost someone. Of course there's sadness, of course there's, the melancholy, but there's also some like denial, and there's some anger, and there's some disbelief, and there's some just like shell shock, that you feel when you've lost someone. And so you're sort of putting all that into this opening solo. There's definitely a lot of power and stamina that has to come, because it starts soft, but then sort of just opens up into this like rage and really agony. So I think that the hardest part about it is just being in the right character, and really like bringing that out.
So not only you have to inhabit the character, inhabit the mind, it's also a challenge to play, because correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes playing powerfully and soft on a trumpet is a physically difficult thing to do, isn't it? Because the trumpet wants to be loud, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's much easier to play sort of in the medium or loud. So like you need a lot more control to play soft.
Let's take a listen just to this intro, and I think you should also be able to we're looking at the sheet music right now. This is a copy. I don't think this is your actual music that you're reading, John, but we can follow along here. This trumpet in B flat.
Yeah.
Oh, same notes. Ooh, and there's that change of character suddenly down to piano and then forte again, like Ray was talking about. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's another interesting thing about, and this is kind of getting into and of course, this is for the benefit of some of my orchestration students who might be watching. One thing that's unique about this trumpet, it says, you can see up here, it says trumpet in B, which that's the German for B flat. What we would, B flat is the most common transposition. But later on, it goes to trumpet in F. And in the 19th century, it was very common to write for brass instruments in different transpositions, given the limitations of some of the technology and the way that the notes that trumpets could play back then. So, John, do you actually have an F trumpet, or are you transposing onto a B flat trumpet?
No, I'm actually playing everything on a C trumpet, which is sort of the common symphonic trumpet that most orchestral players play.
Yes.
There's a lot of controversy actually with the B flat and F in Mahler's music. And it's really normal for trumpet players to be playing in all sorts of different keys. That goes back to before trumpets had valves, and we just had one long tube. And so if a composer was going to write a piece that was in E flat, he would have to write the trumpet part in E flat, and then that trumpet would be in the right key. You would get an E flat pitched trumpet and play that piece. And then if the trumpet players needed to play a piece that was in D, they had to kind of switch their crooks and their tubes and be in D. And then the composer would write for trumpet in D. So over the years, the composers just got used to that. And then sort of around the maybe 1900 or so, when valves had become completely mainstream and you could write in any key, most of the trumpets were in B flat. So a lot of composers started writing in B flat. However, and the whole B flat versus F thing in Mahler symphonies is controversial, even among trumpet players, of why they think that is. My sort of personal take on it is, if you look, almost all of the high licks are written for trumpet in F, and almost all of the medium or low licks are written for trumpet in B flat. And it really goes back and forth 3 or 4 times per page. And I think it was literally just to keep the trumpet part in the staff. Like when the part is really high and it's up out of the staff and you're kind of soaring on these high notes, he would write it for trumpet in F, and that would bring the notes down. And if you had really low notes, he would write it for trumpet in B flat, and that would bring it sort of up. So they would all sort of be in the same staff, like to write.
So there's very much a practical consideration for literally the room on the score on the page and making sure that everything can fit. So it could just be a matter of convenience that carried over. Right. Fascinating. And you answered another question that I had, and that's the use of a C trumpet, a concert pitched trumpet. That is the de facto instrument that most people use now in the orchestra. Yes. Right.
It's a little brighter than a B flat trumpet, and it projects better. So when you have a solo, or if you're the only voice, the only person playing your part, you want to be able to project over an entire sea of violins and string players. And the C trumpet does that just a little bit better than the D flat.
Now, as the principal trumpet, are you responsible for making sure that everybody is playing a C trumpet? No, and somebody doesn't come in and go, I got my B flat, I want to play this.
No,
okay.
I'm pretty, as long as the sound is right, I don't care what instruments people play. Usually C trumpet is sort of the right sound, and that's what people choose. Although there are times when Mahler would write for notes that are too low for the C trumpet. So you have your B there ready. And sometimes he would write for notes that are so high, you play the C trumpet, but you'd rather use low, or you'd rather use an E flat trumpet or something that's higher that makes that a little bit easier. So it's kind of like whatever gets the job done with the correct sound. That's
a very and that's a very fascinating topic of discussion. And as I teach that to orchestration students, is as they read the old scores, to recognize how the old practices meet the modern, because the modern instruments can do a lot of things that the historical instruments simply couldn't do. But yeah, John, we are looking forward to hearing you perform that magnificent, that you have worked since childhood to perform, and now we're going to hear it, and we cannot wait to hear your interpretation of that piece, which it's one thing to hear a recording of it, but trust me, to hear it live, there's just something,
a whole different thing.
And I say this having recorded a lot of instruments, you can never truly record a trumpet. There's something about the nature of a trumpet, that the way it tickles your eardrums, that no microphone can capture. You have to hear it live and in a room to really appreciate the power of a trumpet. No recording has ever done it justice. And I could say that about a lot of instruments, but particularly with the trumpet. And but thank you, John, for that. This is a big symphony. It's written for a lot of players. For instance, this symphony is written for 6 horns, six French horns. In fact, I believe there will actually be 7 French horns on stage too. Is that correct? That we will have, and the reason we do that is so we have. Well, Ray or Stephen, you can explain why we have that 7th French horn, even though he wrote for 6. Why do we have that extra horn in there?
Yes, so it's the 7th player is the assistant to the principal. So she can take a little bit of a break in the big orchestral parts. Maybe the assistant will play, about 2 minutes, give her a little bit of embouchure, a little bit of rest, and then she can come in and do her solo. So it's really, the 6 horns is necessary to fill the sound, and it's always very much within a chord that the 6 players are playing to fortify the harmony of the piece. And it's just brilliant the way he orchestrates it. Sometimes it's 2, 4, and 6 playing together, 1 and 3 playing together, or 1 and 2. So it's just for him, it's a reinforcement mechanism that he's using as a composer.
Exactly. Yeah, Mahler is famous for 6 horns, sometimes 8 horns. Not in this piece, but the idea of the French horn being such a physically demanding instrument that you need the assist on the first, and that's the thing I tell my students is to watch. If you see an odd number of horns, guarantee one of those is the assist, and they have an incredibly important job. But still there's a lot of instruments going on. It's going to be a full stage. I mean, you talk about calling all hands on deck. It is a big orchestra. It has a big sound, and but that does not always. A big orchestra does not always equal a big sound. You have to write to make it sound big, and Mahler knows how to write for a big orchestra and utilize it. And when I look at the score, he's not playing. He knows how to break it apart into sections. He knows when to dial it down and when to go for the gusto. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I also want to transition here to the harp. Laura, obviously this beautiful section in the Adagietto. I want to play a little bit of this, and the score will scroll along. And after we listen to this, Laura, you can tell us a little bit of what we're going to experience and what we're listening to. So let me go ahead and share this, and let's take a listen together to this beautiful excerpt from the 4th. Oh, excuse me. No, this is the 4th movement. Yes, the 4th movement. The 4th movement. Beautiful, beautiful. So, Laura, that's just a tiny taste of what's happening, isn't it?
Yes. Well, and truly, what makes Mahler unique, and this is actually more true in some of the other symphonies, is that before Mahler got his hands on writing for the harp was really mostly playing accompaniment, sort of doubling different parts of the string section, and or playing cadenzas, as we see in Tchaikovsky and in the opera repertoire and ballet repertoire. And Mahler decided to treat the harp like an extension of the double bass section and the timpani section as well. And so very often the harp is playing in the lower extremes of the instrument. And so actually in that particular recording, you couldn't very well hear that feature of his writing.
But it's very resonant down there, isn't it? With big, physically large strings.
Yeah, they're very large strings. They can vibrate too widely. So to play with power down there is just like John was saying. It's easier to play loud on the trumpet. Well, on the harp in that range, it's medium to soft that it is easier to do. So to just get the strings they're made out of steel wire. And as you go down, say an octave and a half below middle C, that's where the steel wire starts, and they become thicker. So in your thumb, you might have one diameter of string, and in your fourth finger, you have another diameter of string. And then you're plucking, and you have to also make sure that you're not buzzing as you replace on those vibrating strings. And so there's a lot of physics, understanding the physics of the instrument. Sometimes composers will write in such a way that it's like you find yourself fighting the vibrating strings. It's hard to get a hold of them. And which is why I always say, don't write very fast repeating notes for the harp. And, Mahler knew that. He somehow knew that. And he gives time for those low octaves as well. And then he doesn't just have the harp play chords, he arpeggiates them. So you hear the harp is providing a pulse through the chord that is arpeggiated.
Yeah,
rather than just doing a rolled chord.
Exactly. It's not just gliss. It's not just rolls. And it seems like Mahler was really, really good at putting everything right and writing for the instruments right on the edge of what they were capable for, and taking the orchestra right up to the edge of what it was capable for at the time. So I want to play one more clip here, and this comes really close towards the end of the piece, and it just shows when Mahler says, "Okay, we got the horses. Let's let them run." It's the big finish. I don't want to give away the ending, but I think this. Oh my goodness! Did I not load it? I have it. Hang on.
Mason.
Yes.
Mason. I just want to say thank you to John, because I know he has to go to another meeting. But thank you, John, for joining us.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. What I'd like to do, did I have that pulled up? Oh, unfortunately, I don't have it. Unfortunately, due to technical glitch, that is not. But I can show you a picture of the score. It's a big ending. It is absolutely magnificent, where the brass just unleashes in its full glory and its full power. It really is a. I'm just right there. Mahler builds slowly to this ending section that just it's the big payoff. And if when you listen for it, when you're there on Saturday, listen for this absolutely beautiful, nuanced symphony that hits in just the right spots, that uses the full size of the orchestra right when it needs to be, that brings it down, that puts instruments right on the edge of what they're capable of doing. I am just so very excited. And I want to thank everyone, for Ray and for John and for Laura for joining us, for Stephen, for everyone who's logged in. I think we are in for a spectacular concert. Is there anything else we'd like to add? Because I know we're getting a little long in the tooth here in terms of time, but there's a lot to talk about with this music, isn't there?
Yes.
I don't know. Does anyone have any questions? If we go back to,
Hey Ray, is John still there? I don't know, but yeah. Have you watched the movie Tar?
No, I have not. I'm sorry. I've yet to see that one.
Well, you have to, because this symphony is one of the main characters in the movie.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
it's very complex. It's about a lot more than just the music, but it really is featured. And the trumpet player, the conductor Tar, she has him play it the opening off stage.
Oh.
So, and
Which I would never agree to
no.
do. Absolutely
Some
not.
Hollywood liberties are happening there, I think.
Well, that's the thing. Once you get into the movie, you realize that not everything that you think was actually happening was actually happening
Oh,
anyways.
hey, no spoilers, no spoilers. Come on.
Definitely gonna go watch that now.
Go
No,
check it
actually,
out.
John, I would not recommend watching it.
It's gotten mixed reviews, I think.
Yeah, wait till after Saturday night.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. Wait.
I have seen.
But I
the
did
movie-
notice. I was going to ask you if you ever do the rotary trumpet on this.
That actually some people do. In America, most people would play this on a piston just because it projects a little better. In Europe they play everything on rotary, and over here we play rotary for German music from like the 1800s, like Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart, that kind of thing. I seem to prefer Mahler on piston just because it projects a little bit more. It makes it a little bit more brilliant and piercing and carrying than the rotary. But there's, there is some justification for that because it's German.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions? Any other comments before we wrap up this fantastic Inside the Music session?
I was going to say, because you mentioned movies, there is a movie on Netflix called, I think it's maybe just called Mahler, but it was made in the 70s, and it's a really interesting sort of portrait of his life and his marriage, and the entire soundtrack is his music, and it's kind of artsy and weird, but it's about an hour and 15. It's a short, interesting movie that's another one about Mahler. It's
Also the since we're getting into movie references, the other big art film reference, especially for this symphony, is Visconti's Death in Venice, which has the particularly the Adagietto is very prominent in that, and so
Right.
Yeah. So
And I have to add that there's going to be a whole nother conversation about his marriage.
Oh yeah, because his wife was a composer and an orchestrator. So one thing I've always wondered is how much of the orchestration was Mahler and how much was Mrs. Mahler.
Alma.
and
Yes,
it wasn't
exactly.
always a happy marriage.
Oh,
That's
right.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. And the fourth movement of the symphony is a love poem to Alma, his wife. But the entire symphony is actually a birthday present for Alma. She was 23 years old when she heard this piece. Mahler sat down at the piano and played the whole symphony, a piano reduction of it for her birthday.
Wow.
And she
Impressive.
stayed awake for the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, you're in for a spectacular experience, and I just realized I had my big headphones on the whole time instead of my little ones. Wow, I look like a bald Princess Leia. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Well, talk about. I'm ending with a technical glitch, and I had my big headphones on the whole time. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this Saturday.